Welcome to this week's news. From the creators of Layers of Fear comes The Medium, a next-generation horror title that examines the duality of perception. Slated for release on Xbox Series X later this year, players will take on the role of Marianne, a psychic medium who can shift into the spirit world. We interviewed the Bloober team about the studio's decade-long history in game development, what inspirations they drew from in creating this new experience, and how next-gen technology and Unreal Engine helped them turn dual-layered horror into a reality. Get the full scoop on our feed. In the burgeoning new world of real-time filmmaking, production and post are merging at the start of the pipeline. On the latest episode of The Pulse, veteran filmmakers with credits including Star Trek: The Motion Picture, The Lord of the Rings trilogy, and The Mandalorian share how real-time virtual production is changing the landscape with new techniques, evolving workflows, greater collaboration, and more. Watch Virtual Production: The Transition to Real-Time Filmmaking on the official Unreal Engine YouTube channel. Virtual reality can greatly reduce the cost of training on new systems, in lieu of trainees using the actual equipment. This is particularly true in the defense industry. To streamline the training process, Torch Technologies built a core system based on Unreal Engine, one that can adapt to virtually any field from defense simulation to medical training. Head over to the feed to learn about how their team has developed in-house solutions versatile enough to serve any of their customers. And now to give a shout out to our top weekly Karma earners, thanks to Shatui, Every Nun, Clockwork Ocean, Mama Marcis, Okari, Ben Vladgi, Expose, Shipster, Herb64, and Shadow River. Are you ready for the community spotlights? Now available from GetUp Games and Iceberg Interactive, fight for your survival in Blazing Sails, a pirate battle royale. Create your own unique pirate and ship, build a crew, and scavenge the world for loot, resources, weapons, and upgrades. Download Blazing Sails from Steam to shiver some timbers and start skirmishes. Created as their graduation piece, Artemisia Binks built this lovely, mysterious forest scene from top to bottom. Blackout, lighting, props, VFX, and all. Head over to their ArtStation page to share your comments and see more of their work. And this spooky 3D platformer is Pumpkin Jack. Developed entirely in blueprints by solo dev Nicolas Meissonier, roam the lands as the mythical Pumpkin Lord on his quest to take down the forces of good. Learn more about Nicolas's dev journey and watch for Pumpkin Jack's release on Steam later this year. Thanks for watching this week's news and community spotlight.
Hi everyone and welcome to Inside Unreal, a weekly show where we learn, explore, and celebrate everything Unreal. I'm your host Victor Broden, and my guests today are John Higgins, welcome to the stream, and Jeroen van Werkhoven, level design director and communications director respectively. Nice. I see you both are wearing a very appropriate attire, and I feel like I am as well. You both calling in from Canada, right?
That's correct, yes.
Awesome. Today we are going to talk about the 2020 Insurgency Sandstorm Mapping Contest. And we have Jeroen's going to show us a little bit about the level editor, how to author maps in the Insurgency Sandstorm mod editor, and John is going to head over to talk a little bit about the contest itself. And so with that said, the floor is all yours, Jeroen.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Victor. So yeah, I'd like to show everybody a little bit like what's inside our modding tools and how you can make a level. I'm gonna start by showing you our example levels. The first thing we're gonna do, which is really important, we're gonna enable the plugin folder. It's located right here. And then we actually have access to like everything, and also our example maps, which are somewhere down here. Somewhere. Let me just do search for it. Yeah, and here we have the maps folder, sample map, and we're gonna open this one here. All right. And as you can see, this is a very basic map with pretty much only like all the gameplay elements. And what we do is we have a sub-level system where we can like set up our core game mode. So the core game modes are push, firefight, domination, frontline, and checkpoint. Checkpoint is our co-op game mode. And right in here, we have currently example map push security enabled. And you can basically just go through this map yourself and exactly see how we set it up and actually just copy stuff for your own map. This is totally fine, like all the objectives, spawn zones, if that makes it easier. And we can then disable this one and we can say like, okay, we only want to do the firefight layout. This is only like this section like here. So we basically have like sub-levels set up like for one single map, which contain like all the different, like each sub-level has its own game mode. And we can easily like plug in more game modes when we want to. But let's switch to a more interesting map. One of the maps we actually already released for Sandstorm, which is going to be Power Plant, because what we did is we added several official maps in the modding tools that you can open yourself to check out how we exactly constructed our levels. So I'm going to show you now where you can find those. Pretty easy. We're just going here, open level. And we have here a whole bunch of files, like we have farmhouse, we have power plant, precinct. We're gonna open power plant, but it is important that we open the correct level because all of these are sub-levels and they only contain like a small part of the level. So it's not actually like the persistent level, which is like, you know, containing everything. So I'm gonna open the main map itself. Just look here, like the first map here, power plant. It's always like the actual name. So it's never like power plant AI or something like that. It's always like the main name of the level is the actual persistent map. Take a little bit of time, but should be fairly quick. I have to say though, if you open maps for the first time, it can take a long time because it needs to index all the meshes first. It can take up from 30 minutes to 45, maybe even an hour, depends on the specifications of your system. But once all those meshes, all those indexes are created and set up, it only takes like 5 to 10 minutes to open a map the next time. And also, of course, all building the shaders, you know, all the Unreal stuff that you have to do. So yeah, this is Power Plant, one of our more recent release maps. It's based around CQB gameplay. It's not as large as some of our older maps, like maybe some of you know, like Precinct and Summit, which are one of the larger maps we have in the game. This one is a lot more confined and very CQB based, kind of like a Chernobyl setting, as you can see. Very green. It was a really fun map to work on with the team. So I'm gonna show you a little bit how we set this up and like how we how the modular pieces work, because the first thing you will notice when you select something in this map is that everything is merged, because we do that for optimization, of course, making sure the draw cars all are low enough and having good performance in the game. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hide one of these sections now and show you how you can, where you can find the actual like unmerged meshes. So let's just see which one we can grab. We can do the entrance merge right here and see it disappears from my screen. And it's saying here add existing, and we look here for entrance. And we have here the merged version, but we also have unmerged. So gonna open that.
Just a quick FYI for you, Jerome. We're getting a little bit of pretty heavy compression artifacts on my end here through Discord.
Okay.
Yeah, so just work a little bit slower than you normally do, and
Yeah, I will do that. Yeah.
and the bitrate will catch up. Thank you.
No worries. All right, so I enabled the entrance and merge stop level now, and replace it with the merged version. And we go now in this area. You'll see like we actually have the unmerged meshes here. Let me get this out of the screen and make this a little bit bigger. So all these meshes are using our 400 footprint. That means like the walls are 4 by 4 meters. And we're working with a grid, usually 10. It will like, it's very compatible with the grid of 10 to make sure, you know, we don't have any seams, any issues, and just makes it a lot easier just to construct these like buildings without running into like seams or any other artifacts like with the stream. No. And we have a lot of these pieces like it's pretty much Legos. So I can show you if I select this one here. Oh, move this. Like all the pieces we have. It's a lot, and this is only one folder. Like this is only walls, and we have trims. It's still loading because we have so many. All kinds of different pieces to make your own like buildings, levels, and do like kit bashing, roofs. We have an industrial folder for like, you know, more like a factory kind of level. Like this one is more like around industrial setting, but we also have a refinery. It's just like an oil field. It's just using a lot of these assets. So we have really like pretty much everything you can think of to make an awesome level for the mapping contest. I want to dive into a little bit now in like the objectives and the distance between the objectives and how we think about objectives, what are good objective designs, and how, you know, how can the player best approach an objectives. What makes it fun? That's the most important part always for us in level design. So we have, let me first enable the sub level again for this one. Do push security. Push is one of our core modes, and something we have now, what we didn't have for the source version is really cool. We have a push security and an insurgent layout. So you fight like one way into the map, and then you actually with the other team you can fight the other way. So you like, you know, you go to different parts of the level, and it makes it a lot of fun. So I'm gonna look here just for push because we named everything very consistent to make sure when there are any issues, it's easy to find, which is always important. Our first objective is actually this in this building right here. And I'm gonna move this one just out of the way. And we have a spawn location right here. SC, which means spawn zone, push A team 1. It's just all the way over here. So how we usually do our distance is with a really awesome tool in Unreal. I really like this tool. So let's scroll out. I can just say here like, okay, so what's the distance between this point and this point? I do middle mouse button and then just drag. And I can see like, okay, it's 11,000 centimeters. And that's something, it's usually good to check both on the top-down view, but also to just have a stopwatch and just do timing. Usually we try to have objectives between 20 to 30, 35 seconds to make sure like the player doesn't have to travel for too long before getting into the action. Even if an objective is a little bit further away in a more open map, you can already like run into action very quickly. And yeah, we just want to make sure like, you know, and also at the same time making sure like, for example, right here, we want to make sure that the player doesn't feel like, okay, I'm directly committed to going like, I'm just going to use this for now in this direction. I don't want to be committed to go right straight from here. It's not really working right now. I think you can see my cursor, so that's fine. So say like, yeah, okay, I'm spawning here as a player. I want to make sure like if I go this direction, I can still say, oh wait, I can also go this way and actually approach the objective like this, or I can go, you know, the more like exposed route is going all the way like this. Although I wouldn't do that because it's very dangerous, it's very open road, but it is possible. Where if you say like, okay, I move my spawn zone like a lot closer, like say in this building, then as a player, you're directly committed to like pretty much go in this direction and approach the objective from the front. So it's really thinking about that, like, you know, making sure the player has enough ways to flank an objective, and has a better opportunity to actually win and capture it, because Insurgency is a very hardcore tactical shooter, where like defenders have a big advantage. They have a really nice building they occupied, with really great defensive locations. Let me go back into perspective and do it a little bit slower.
Are there any resources on best design practices for the levels?
In what way do we mean that?
Oh, so for example, a document or a blog post or something that outlines sort of, you know, roughly how you look at the levels in terms of like, you know, wanting to make sure that the player doesn't have to run too far.
Not right now. We have some documentation on. We have some like rough documentation on mod.io, but we don't have like very in depth yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we have. You can see here, like you have these like defensive positions, like the sandbags, and it's really important for like an objective location. There's a lot of like ways for a defending team to look in a lot of different directions. So there's like a clear line of sight where the enemy might come from. And this location shows that really well, especially on this like higher floor. Can go here, like, yeah, even set up some cover notes here. These are for the bots for co-op. Yeah, you can see like they can like that attacking team can come from here, from the hill. So it's really important to look at that. At the same time, for the objective itself, if I go in here, so if I, so let me find the capture zone. So CZ means like capture zone, and we have like a push A1, 2, and 3 are actually A4 are all part of the same objective.
So sorry to interrupt you, Jerome. Can we try to restart your stream because the quality I'm receiving now is almost too poor to see
Oh,
anything.
okay, yeah, that's weird. Okay, can I just stop it now?
Yeah, go ahead and stop it, and we'll just quickly restart. Because your camera is coming through well, so it seems to only be. And then make sure you pick the 1080p 60.
Yeah, give me 1 sec.
Yeah, sorry about this, chat. There's always a little bit of technology involved that that we don't control. Although I will say that Discord has been really good to us on the stream here.
How is it now?
Okay, so that looks good now. So let's just hope that it will stay like that. Thanks.
Yeah, let's continue. See what it does. So yeah, we have our capture zone, and what we did for this building is we only have a capture zone downstairs, not on the upper floor. That's for a reason. We noticed in testing that if you have one staircase up to the second floor, which is pretty much the case with this building, it's very easy to lock down the top floor by one player. He can just or she can just sit in the corner, and like here we have our staircase, and nobody ever gets up there. It's impossible. Um, so in this case, we did only the bottom floor, and also making sure like there are a lot of ways to exit this room, and you never get really stuck in a single room. Because say like there are two players left, right? There are only two players left. There's no way that a player that's capturing the point is gonna move to the other room because the enemy might be there. So you want to make sure like there's always a way for that player to flank the enemy, go the other way around. Which is in this case, can go this way. And same with this one here. And also making sure like an objective is not too big because otherwise it just becomes hide and seek. The players can actually not find each other, just like running around in a building and like I have no idea where this guy is like blocking the gap. It's just somewhere, but yeah. And that's just not a lot of fun. So yeah. Moving a little bit forward with this to another building. To show some of our like we have something called like fire support where like helicopter can come in and start shooting you from the air, artillery, and something we notice like especially with Boost is that if an objective is mainly outside, it's very easy just to kill all the players on the point because there's no protection, there's no cover, there's nothing pretty much. But at the same time, it's cool to have variation, right? In like objective design, it's not fun if every objective is like inside a building. So how we counter that is we actually have some objectives like this one here that is partly inside, like in this room, but also like this parking space here, like is part of the objective, where this truck is parked right here. It's also part of the objective. So you still have a little bit of that like inside and outside gameplay, and at the same time opening both doors, so it actually feels like it's part of a single objective. It doesn't feel like isolated because what you have very quickly in level design is that interior and exterior is very isolated from each other. It's almost like a different map when you run into a building. It's like, yeah, but now I don't know what's going on outside. So that's really really important for us to take into account. Show you a little bit more the sub-levels we have. Let me that here. So the first thing is we have day lighting and night lighting are separate from each other. So all the lighting, like for night, is in a separate sub-level, and all the lighting for day is in a separate sub-level. That is because when we say like, okay, we want to turn a light off in a building, like here, it's much easier just to have it in a separate sub-level. It doesn't mix up. We can set up a very specific like gameplay experience for a day map or like a night map. I can show you if I turn this one off. It might get a little bit dark now.
And those are sublevels that are set to be lighting scenarios, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, they're set up as lighting scenarios.
And so if you're curious about how to work with lighting scenarios, that's the term you can Google for.
And it's important for lighting scenarios to make sure like all the lights are actually inside the lighting scenario. And now it's pretty dark right now. Don't know how visible that still is.
We can see the ambience.
Okay, I can. Turn this up a little bit for the stream.
It's a good call.
Yeah. Yeah, I see like all these like the lamppost here is turned on. And like it's important for like just to add right now for like lamppost and bigger props that to add them both like in the day and also in the night scenario, especially if you're gonna work with like want to create like a co-op level just for the pathfinding for the bots, because otherwise you have to add like dynamic nav modifiers, which is possible, but it is like a lot of work and are a little bit more performance heavy. And also it makes sense, right? Because why would you remove a lamppost from when it is day? That doesn't happen in real life. And just also add to like the immersive feeling and the believability of a level. I'll turn this one off.
It's always that little waiting. There are a lot of lights there though that are getting loaded and unloaded.
Yeah. It's a lot, yeah. Yeah, and you can see here, like it's still there, the light post, but this time it's off, so it's not enabled. And let me just turn on this again, so it's not killing your eyes. And so we have our global day and global night, which are light scenarios, and we can set these really easily up here in our light scenarios right here in the world settings, where we have the day and night, and we link them to the actual light scenarios. So in this case, it's power plant global day, power plant underscore global day, and for night it's power plant underscore global night. And we can pick a default lighting scenario here, which is the day. You can even add more if you like to. The thing is though, like it's important to figure out like if it's a little bit dark, then you might want to say, okay, this is more a light night scenario, because the bots will react to that. They have less visibility in a night scenario than they do in a day. So especially for like a co-op scenario, it's really important. But yeah, you're free to add like a dusk scenario or something else, whatever you can think of. There's a lot of creativity here, a lot of creative freedom that we also wanted, like as level designers on our team, just to make whatever we pretty much want to make. That's why we also have all these like modular pieces to create really cool environments for the players. I want to show just our final objective in this map as a last thing. So for Push, the final objective is a catch that you have to blow up. Let me see if I can find it, or maybe I just disabled the sub level. No, it's enabled. Yeah, it's right here. So we did something really interesting here. We blew a hole in the wall, in the ceiling right here, in the roof. And what we noticed in testing was kind of funny. People were throwing in Molotov cocktails. So what we did is we added a sprinkler system inside here to make sure, like, when that happens, the actual sprinkle system goes off and stops the fire. Which it's pretty funny. And like using those like more creative approaches for objectives makes it a lot of fun.
Makes it dynamic too, right? If it's the
Yeah.
first time playing and you've played other maps, you're not expecting that, right?
Yeah, it's really it's very cool. Like a lot of testers were saying, "Oh yeah, this is really different." But at the same time, we have to be careful to not put it like directly above the objective, because we still have fire support. And if the bomb drops in here and like the catch will be right down here, it will be destroyed. And that's also something to take into account for like a catch objective, is to make sure like the windows are closed. Like here we had a lot of wooden panels, so not everyone can just throw in grenades and hit the catch like way too quickly. Like we had levels where you were almost like still on the other objective, fire a RPG and a straight hit like the catch and destroyed it, and you win the round. So that's definitely something you want to take into account. I want to open another map where we're gonna set up a very basic push layout. I picked the push layout because it's a game mode we didn't really cover yet in our documentation, which we're gonna do in the future. We have checkpoint, we have domination, also frontline, but that's kind of like tied into push, so it will be probably a combination of like push and frontline in a single document. So let me open the map. And I gave it a really cool name. Called it Sandstorm World.
Ship it.
Yeah. So yeah, this is very basic. We have our spawn points. These are the objective buildings. This one is a little bit more of an interesting objective building. Once again, it's really cool to use your creativity and try different things, like especially like, well, things that we didn't try yet in Sandstorm. So this building looks like, okay, there's not much going on, but if I go inside here, there's actually a hole here in the wall where I can get through and go up here. So this entire building is actually an objective. But I was working on this, and I actually was like, okay, yeah, the player, the player is inside this room, afraid, alone, and it's like more players like somewhere here in this building, and you don't want to really. Player knows like, okay, there's someone here in this room, but if there's like only one way to get there, like with the by the stairs right here, that's quite dangerous. So what if you blow a hole in the floor and actually be able to sneak up behind, right? Just to keep that, have that rotation, and also making sure there is not really a dead end. There's always a way to escape the room and get out of it like in multiple ways. And I think that makes like the most interesting and fun objective designs. So yeah, let's set this one up. I already added some objectives just because it's pretty boring if I have to do them all. But intentionally, I removed the first spawn zone right here. I want to have like my first spawn. It will be for the security team because this is a pretty traditional layout where security attacks the insurgents. So I'm gonna set it up right now and gonna start with a spawn zone. And I can just find it here, right here. We have like the spawn zone. And I'm gonna drag that in. And then I usually want to make it a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna say a lot bigger. And we're gonna make it higher up. So that looks good, yeah. Why should it be a little bit bigger? Well, the thing is that fire support, as they like to fire inside spawn zone. So we want to make sure, like, as long the player is inside this like spawn zone, they are protected, and also fire support ignores spawn zone. So we want to make sure like the player has a little bit of space to actually make it safely outside the spawn area without directly getting attacked by a gunship or a Black Hawk helicopter. So right now in the settings, we have a team ID, which is 0, which is correct. The team ID for security team is 0, and for insurgents is 1. I'm just gonna rename this one. It's just my my OCD to make sure it's all properly named. So this one is, as said, push 1, push A. This is A objective, team 1.
You call it OCD, but the next level designer will say thank you.
Yeah. Now we're gonna add some spawn points. So player starts. It's important here to make sure you select the insurgents one. And it looks like they're both the same, but there's a difference. In this one, says represents an insurgency player. In this one, this is just the stock one from Unreal Engine. So just make sure you select the top one. You can add it here. Make sure it faces the objective so the player can directly see like where the objective is. So we're gonna rotate it. This. And then here we have a team ID. We want to set it to 0 because again, that's the security team. And we're gonna link this one to our team 1 spawn zone. There you go. But there's the interesting thing now, because what I did is I put this in the persistent level, but I need to go into the sub level. So we're gonna fix that right now. I'll say here, move selected actors to level. And I do the same with my fun zone.
The day I discovered that option made my level design work a lot easier.
Yeah, I know.
Instead of like copy, paste, copy, paste,
Yeah,
go back, delete.
it's the same for us. Yeah, it's really nice. So I move this again out of the way. Make sure you set this as current when you're working on the game mode, just to make sure like all the gameplay elements are in the correct sub level. So let me go back to this one here. Gonna link this one to the spawn zone right here. Currently only have one spawn point, but we want more, of course. We want to like have 16 on this side because we do we have 28 players max. But the thing is, like, some community servers run with 32 players, so we want to make sure like there's enough spawn points in a map. And I can just like copy these.
Someone was asking how large the mod editor is. Do you happen to know?
I think it's I'm not the exact number. I think it's around 80 gigabytes almost. It's pretty big.
Okay, that sounds about right. And if you're wondering, then always make sure you don't fill your hard drive up to max, because that means that your hard drive might actually throttle, and it will take a long time to load stuff. You always want at least a little bit of a, preferably like a 25% buffer on your drive. So try not to fill it up to the max.
All right, so we have our spawn zone right now for the security team, and I already added like all the spawn zones for both teams. Like this one is for security. This is the B spawn zone. Right here we have A spawn for the insurgents team. This one's a little bit different, but I will explain that later when we go into actually like hooking this up to a scenario. We have another spawn here. And this is our, you can see here, this is team 2. This is our insurgent spawn for the first objective. Another one here. And also we have a objective building here, which still needs an objective, a capture zone. So I'm gonna add that next. So objective in the Insursi Sandstorm consists of 2 parts. We have an objective capture ball. It's basically like how can I best explain it? Like kind of like a overhead, like, you know, it's like it's where the icon is showed to the player, like where the icon, like where you see like the big A, like, you know, on screen where the objective is. But also it's like where all the capture zones are linked to. So I'm gonna add that right now. It's a little bit bigger. Place it here. So right here it says objective capture ball. We're gonna change that to very simple OC push. So that's like objective capture ball. The game mode, which is push, and which objective. Well, let's see. There you go. I always make these a little bit smaller just to make it less messy. They can sit here right on the floor. That's fine because we have in code set that it will be floating, like spouts, I think. 700 centimeters above the floor. Or no, sorry, 70 centimeters, not 700. That would be like really high up. Just make sure if like a multi-story building, you actually like move it up to the second floor. So it's clear to the player like, hey, this building is like, it's the second floor I have to capture. And if it's like more like both floors, yeah, then it's fine to just keep it on the bottom floor. So this is all fine. We have a minimal players to capture, which is one. We just want one player, which is like our basic. It's part of our basic rule sets to always have like a push objective be capturable by one player. It's never multiple. And right here we have our capture zone. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna add a capture zone. Just type in capture here, and there we go. Here we have the capture zone. And same thing, I'm gonna rename this one to CZ push A. Oh, sorry, C, of course. My bad. Go and get a little bit down. Now I'm going actually in the brush editing mode to make this a little bit more precise, to make sure it covers the room. Moving really slow here to make sure the stream stays okay. It's a little bit dark in this corner, so a little bit higher, not all the way up to the top, because otherwise you can also capture it from the top floor, which we don't want. So about here is fine. There you go. This is our capture zone. And we don't have to set up anything in here. It's just we need to make sure we link this one to our objective capturable. This is this one here. There you go. It's all done. So I was telling earlier, like, what happens if you have like multiple capture zones, right? Because this is a very simple room. Well, that's also why I made this building, because this one here actually consists of like multiple capture zones. And if you can see here, like we have a push B, which is this part right here. And at the same time, we have this part right here. And that makes like our capture zone. Like this is the entire capture zone for objective B. And that's all like linked into our objective capturable right here, both B and B2. So you can make pretty complex buildings and still make a great good capture zones like inside those buildings, like with rooms that are maybe excluded and some rooms are included. If buildings are in angles, that's fine too. Just make sure not to add like hundreds of them. That's but yeah, it can definitely like, I think we have some that go up to like 8, I think max. think for a large part we have it all set up. These boxes here are actually our restricted areas. You can see here RA, Pussy, Team Zoo. These are restricted areas. So it's pretty much like, okay, when let's do it from A. It's a little bit easier. So the first objective is active. We have a respawn system, of course, so players will respawn after 30 seconds or something when they die. And we want to make sure like they cannot get killed in their spawn zone. So these restricted areas make sure that doesn't happen. There's one thing though to take into account is that an objective has enough breeding room for players to actually like flank it, get around it, but at the same time not directly be able to shoot into the spawn. Like it's probably a bad example because the spawns are here. So it's very open, but say like there are walls, there's a building in between here, like, then it's, yeah, you want to have like your like restricted area close to the objective, and also making sure like it's not too far from the objective, just to avoid the players wander too far off. Like it's an objective based mode, so you want the players like at the objective for the most time. And that works both ways. Like it's the same for this side. The security restricted area. Here we have actually a wall where it stops. So it's always important for restricted areas also to make sure they don't lead into like a dead end. Say like you have an alley and you walk down the alley and there's a restricted area there. The player's like, why did I walk in here? Because I have to walk back now. I'm not going through this restricted area because I cannot use my weapons. So it's really important to take into account. And also here, like there's a little bit of breathing room. Could add some like sandbags here, like can just do that now. A lot of sandbags, so it's cool to show them up. Of course, facing the attacking team, so the defensive defenders can use it. Put up a machine gun. And yeah, just making sure it's not inside the restricted area. Well, otherwise they cannot use it. It's not the case, but yeah, this way, you can make sure like there's enough defensive positions, but at the same time, they're not really eager to go like inside the restricted area. They stay around the objective. It's just making sure like you have the objective gameplay, and not like players everywhere. And there are, of course, like there are always exceptions. That's always in game development. So definitely like, experiment a little bit with it, but also look at our maps, how we did it, and don't go too far off track. So this is our final objective. Once again, this is a catch right here that the attacking team has to destroy. For this objective, it's really important that there's not many ways to get inside this building. So there's actually like only one way, and you have to go up the stairs, because this is like the last stand. This is like the final objective. When defenders lose this objective, they lose. So they want to like make sure like they're like, precious like catch is very well protected and can be easily defended. And it really takes a lot of work for an attacking team to get inside this building. Of course, use flashbangs, grenades. But still, there's no way, like, you cannot flank this objective. It's not like you cannot come from this direction or even go directly on the second floor and enter this room right here. You actually have to go up to the second floor before you even get access to this catch. So
You have
yeah,
to push.
you really have to push. Yeah, yeah. All right, so we have all our elements for push. Let's hook it up to a scenario now. Scroll down to my. Actually, I can just find it here. It's easier. So I already have my folder scenarios, but there's nothing there yet. So I'm gonna add here a new scenario. It's located right here in the Insurgency menu. I select your scenario multiplayer because it's a multiplayer scenario. It's like always pretty much the case, like even co-op is multiplayer. So for the mapping contest, you will always use the scenario multiplayer. Select here, rename this scenario Sandstorm World. And push. And we're gonna open this. It of course opened on my other screen. So in here we have a few important things. The first one is like the attacking team, which is set to 255, which is basically like for firefight when you have like a neutral scenario where both teams are like attacking and defending. But in this case, this is a push scenario. We want to make sure the attacking team is security, so we set this to 0. Then we jump directly into our neutral spawn zone, which I mentioned a little bit. The neutral spawn zone is a team 2 start. This is a little bit of an exception to the rule. Let me just show you in the viewport. So there's like this spawn zone here is only active for like 10 seconds or something, a very short amount of time. And we added this spawn zone to make sure like the defending team is like directly at the objective. So you don't have to travel first from here, all the way to the objective to set up your defenses. They are directly here. They can set up defenses, and then the attacking team comes in. But we want that only once because, you know, once the battle is going on, you don't want like the enemy team spawning here because, yeah, you can easily spawn camp. So to avoid that, we actually added like this neutral spawn zone that's active for like only about 10 seconds and then moves back to this one, which is the actual spawn zone. And that's why it's set up in the scenario a little bit different. Drag this back on this screen again. We don't have any secondary objectives, so we don't have to worry about that right now. The scenario display name. This is actually pretty simple because we have like a lot of localization. So we can just go in here, find the right string table, and make sure like this is a security scenario. So this is like the security team is going to attack. So we want to make sure that's clear in our UI that the security team is attacking on this scenario. Like the push, like naming, that's already set up in the UI. So you don't have to worry about that. Just worry about like, is this security or insurgents that's attacking? Level, well, the main level. So in our case, it's Sandstorm World. Game mode, We have a lot of game modes, but a lot of them, don't worry about them. We just need push game mode right now. Default theater, that's security and insurgents. We added this system so we can also add, like, for Day of Infamy, we had, of course, like um, other team factions than like security and insurgents, and this way we can easily, like with this one, like here we have infected, which is also different game mode. And we can set up the sub-level system here. So it's important to make sure we put the right name in here, because otherwise it doesn't load in game. It will say like assets cannot be found. So really make sure there are no typos. I'm just clarify I'm using the name right here. Sandstorm World underscore push with the capitals. So it's the capital S, W, and P underscore. Also really important to add that. Just make double check, triple check, just make sure it's there, spelled correctly. Then the next part is the objective. So here we can set up the objectives. We have in this case 4 objectives because we have A, B, C, and D. D is our final objective. So we set up here push A, and the sponsors that are linked to it. Well, that's pretty simple because because we named them so easily. We can just see here Team 1 and Team 2. And same with this one. This is B. So B, Team 2. And we do the same with this one. This is C. Oh. And then the final objective, this is D. But D doesn't have any spawn zones because D will use the spawn zones from the C objective. This is because when, well, if you played Insurgency, you know, but if you make it all the way to this objective, then the enemy team has 0 waves, so they won't respawn anymore, so they don't need a restricted area. And that also means that's really important to make sure of that, the spawn zone for C is not too far away. I think it's this one here. Yeah, because you kind of have to travel like 2 objectives to get, or like, well, you have to travel past 1 objective to get to the next objective. But at the same time, like the defenders are so in their disadvantage at that point because they're losing, right? So it makes sense that you have to travel a little bit longer, and also it's usually like at the end of the game, so not many waves are left anymore. And it really adds to like this less standing moment. Like sometimes even the case, like both teams have 0 waves, and you like really, to the final players that are alive, and you just barely make it to the catch and blow it off. Those moments are, those are the best. And once that happens, then you also know, like, okay, this map, this works. This is a fun map. This can work. Especially in playtest, when we see that, like, it's really up to the final person getting there and destroying it, or the final player actually like winning from the attacking team. That's really awesome to see.
That's when your pulse goes up to 180.
Yeah. So we pretty much set up like the scenario now. Everything here. So the next step is to make sure we can actually like load it in the game. And once we have this, let me save it just to make sure. Go into world settings, and here we have our selected game mode, and we don't have to touch this. This is all good. Just on here, like default scenarios, we want to set up the scenario. So right here we have push. We want to do the push game mode, and select Sandstorm World. And that's really it. Now we have a functioning push scenario. I can even load it. Here. Oh, one of the things you also want to make sure of, because if I turn this off, this is an example. You can see I cannot select your default player start. So I will spawn right here where I am right now in the viewport. But to check out making sure your like spawn points work correctly, it's really important to actually turn on like the sublevel here, and then you have the option to actually spawn at the default player start. All set up, so let's load in, see what happens. Might take a little bit, few minutes.
There was a question for you, Jeroen, here. As a level designer, do you also work on blueprints?
A little bit, yeah. But it's very like some of our level designers more skilled with blueprints than others, but we definitely use them a lot. Yeah.
And there's another question. How long does it take to finish a map from blockout phase to release?
It depends a lot on the map, but for example, for Powerplant that I showed earlier, it's about 6 to 7 months. It can take a lot of time, yeah.
Do you usually author new models for the new maps?
It depends a little bit. Like we have now a really big library of models, so yeah, we reuse a lot of stuff, but definitely for like if we want to create a certain feeling or go in a certain art direction, we make like the props that fit with that. Like for Powerplant, we made a lot of new props that fit like the more like green feeling Chernobyl setting.
Just gonna keep going with questions while
Sure, yeah.
waiting for it to load. Do you have a standard? I think you might have mentioned this earlier, but do you have a standard distance between these objects? Is this a typical setup?
Yeah, this is pretty much the same setup as Powerplant. So the distance between the objectives is about 10,000 centimeters. And that is a relative like just a good approach to as like a distance between the objectives. It's not too long, it's not too short. It has enough action, and also at the same time gives you a higher chance to just finish the map as a level designer, because the more distance, you know, the more you have to add, the more work it will be.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. We are in game. And well, I can walk but it takes a long time. So we have our cheats.
Just a second here. I am not able to go full screen on that for some reason.
Oh.
Not sure why. Okay, I guess we'll just have to do it this way then. We can see. The game's okay. editor is more important
Okay.
full screen. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I press the minus key, we have a server admin menu where we have some cheats. You can just say your fly mode, and just making sure that everything works as intended. What we usually do as level designers, we just like fly into like an objective here. You see a capture zone. Yeah, this one is working. Want to make sure for the next one. This one is showing up the B, as you can see. It's really weird and local if you go up like this, the B disappears. We don't have that in the live build, like on servers. That doesn't happen. And our programmers are still trying to figure that out. But yeah, it's just game development, I suppose.
Yeah, the editor versus packaged.
Yeah. And same here, like B is available. And I want to go to C, just make sure it works. It's the actual objective that we added manually. Yeah, also showing up under the waiting for players. And then finally, we have the catch inside this object, this building. Yeah, it's also here. So that should be all good. Of course, I can check all the spawn zones too, like all the way up to C. But yeah, I'm not gonna do that for the sake of this stream. One more thing to add is though, make sure to add a supply crate. That's where players can change their weapons, loadout. Very simple, very close to spawn zone. Like the players can directly see it where it is, and we link that to the objective. So in this case, it's B objective, and that's the same for both teams. There's no insurgents or security supply crate. It's for both teams the same.
You could almost make one of those supply crates a sort of hotspot to fight for, right? If you wanted to change it up a little.
That might be cool. Yeah, for sure.
So like that risk reward, right? Of having to head over there. Maybe it's in like an open area or in the middle of the map.
Yeah, you could like maybe even put it like on an objective itself, right? That you have to go inside objective to get access to it or close to it, or or encourage players to go in a certain direction because they want to go first to the supply crate before going to the objective.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's all I have on my end.
All right, it's pretty cool. Definitely, if you're just joining the stream and you have never worked with Unreal before, it might look like a lot, but a lot of these things can be broken down into separate individual steps. There is also the quick start mapping guide provided by New World Interactive. I will go ahead and link that. And it's you're using Mod.io, right, for all of the mod tools?
Yeah, correct.
Cool. If you're curious about Mod.io, we did a stream with them actually earlier this year, last year, at some point. If you go back into our Twitch history or YouTube in the playlist, you can find that. All right.
Yeah, it's a really exciting platform, Mod.io, and it's we've known Scott and the people behind Mod.io for several years. He even helped us with one of our previous mapping contests for Dev Infamy about 2-3 years ago. And we're excited to see user-generated content and mods come to more games and more platforms.
Yeah, and that Mod.io is completely cross-platform, right? It's not tied to any platform since it's its own sort of backend. And they also give you that cool opportunity to create your own mod page, so you don't actually have to host any of that yourself, and it allows you to upload and download mods. It's good stuff. John, oh, go ahead, Jerome.
No, I was just saying, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, John. Did you want me to? I will let you take the floor, and then I'm ready whenever you need me.
Why not? Okay. Yeah, if you want to bring up a screen share of the contest rules. So, as you may have seen in some of our announcements today, as well as giving a demo of our Unreal Engine editor and the workflow that we use for creating levels in game, we're also announcing for Newwood, it's our largest ever community mapping contest. We've got a lot of fantastic sponsors who are helping us promote and provide some incredible prizes for this contest. And we would like to encourage everyone who's interested in Unreal, or whether they are a experienced level designer, a novice level designer, whether they have perhaps worked with our older Source Engine games, to give it a go. We've got a contest that's lasting for 20 weeks, and we're looking to really utilize this as a way to get more people using our mod tools, familiarize it, create some amazing community content for both us and the community to play. We've got a very long history of doing these contests, and is a screen share up on the stream?
Yeah. I'm showing the prices
Okay.
right now.
Aha. Okay. Cool. I just swapped to Twitch so I can see what's going on rather than Discord. So with Newwood Interactive, we've had a long history of modding. A lot of our core team started out as modders. The Insurgency franchise actually started as a mod of Half-Life 2 way back, probably in the early 2000s, Jeroen? When was the original Insurgency mod?
Yeah, that's 2007.
Yeah, our team have a lot of experience with modders. We started as modders ourselves, and through modding, we were able to get into the games industry and form a commercial studio, which has gone on to have 3 released commercial titles and thankfully quite a lot of success. So we're very keen to support modding and user-generated content in all of our games, all of our products. We try and to the extent that we can, we like to enable the community to have access to tools that we use to develop levels. So the level editor that you'll be able to download at sandstorm.game/editor is the exact same editor that Jeroen and all of our level design team internally use. So it's got a huge amount of functionality, and this is, we want to encourage people to get into level design, start playing around with the Unreal Engine, and create some really amazing, incredible content. We don't have a specific theme for the contest. We wanted to allow a huge range of flexibility and creativity with the maps. So got from now through until, I believe it's January 28th or January 29th. It's about 20 weeks, so quite a long time period to get familiar with the tools and work on a cool custom map for Insurgency. And we're looking to see what people have got. We've got some fantastic prizes. Intel, NVIDIA, Epic Games, and our publisher, Focus Home, as well as Saber Interactive, have been kind enough to donate a lot of awesome prizes to us. I believe we've got about $17,500-ish worth of prizes. First place, we get $5,000 from Newwood Interactive, a 2080 Ti GPU, a i7 Intel processor, as well as a copy of World War Z, which is another great game developed by Saber Interactive and Focus Home, our publisher. And we've got a lot of prizes that we hope will encourage people to give the tools a go. Historically as well, in the past from our previous contests, we've actually implemented a lot of user-generated content and contest winners into the game officially. I believe we're probably about 12 or so, about a dozen maps from previous contests or other community-created content that have gone into the original Insurgency, Day of Infamy as official updates. And we've even hired a couple of people from the community. 2 of our level designers that are working on our team here at Newwood actually came from the community, and one of them came directly from a result of a mapping contest. We're not guaranteeing that any maps that enter this contest will be put into game as official content, because we want to ensure that all the submissions meet our standards in terms of gameplay, art style, performance optimization, and quality. But we'd definitely like to use these contests as a great way to not only motivate people to create user-generated content, but for us to kind of scout out great talent from the community. So we're really excited to be launching this, and hopefully everyone in the chat is as excited as we are.
Definitely seeing a couple of people who are saying that the contest will be a nice motivation to get going, sort of learning the tools as well as making their first maps, which it is, right? Same thing with game jams. It's like, you know, it might be easy to want to quit there in the last couple of hours, but or even after your first 24-hour marathon. But if you have that goal of like, oh, you know what, it's just another month, right? Like I've got time, I have a problem, I'll be able to fix it, and then just keep pushing.
Absolutely, yeah. We wanted to provide some nice incentives to people, and I think you know, this will motivate them. It's just some pretty awesome prizes. It's the largest contest that we've ever done as a studio. After seeing the results of the previous level design contests we've had, you know, we wanted to really go big this time round. You know, we've thankfully had the support of some amazing partners who will, you know, not only help with pricing, but also with promoting this. And we would love to see, you know, dozens and dozens or hundreds of entries, ideally.
Yeah.
You know, even if you don't win the contest, there's so much that you can learn about the engine, about level design, you know, about game development in general. Treat this almost as a learning experience, I would say, and give it a shot, give it a go. And you know, just even if you upload your mods to Mod.io and you know the community downloads them and plays them, you know, that's what everybody wants to do. We just want to make amazing, great games, and we want to empower our community to make great content for our games as well, enabling them to create the settings and the game modes, the play styles that, you know, that they want to play, and hopefully other people within the community also wish to play. So we're not really putting many restrictions on the how wild you can go. You know, we want to enable people to kind of think outside the box, go a little bit, you know, have a lot of freedom, provided that it fits within Silent Sandstorm's theme and setting. Don't go making a space map or an underwater volcano map, as cool as those probably would be. You know, we want to make sure it's fitting with games thematics and game setting. And also, although there's quite a long time, we would encourage people to think a little bit about the scope and scale of their entry. 20 weeks may seem like a long time, and it is, you know, one of our longest contests that we've done. In the past, I believe they were 10 weeks long, so this is almost double the amount of time. Think about, you know, your capabilities. Don't go too huge and create a massive, expansive open world map, because you know, it's going to be a real struggle to get it, you know, polished and optimized. Think about what you can achieve in that time frame with your knowledge, whether you're you know, a veteran level designer in the industry for decades, or whether you're just learning Unreal. It's open to both individuals and teams. You can work in teams of up to 5. So, you know, feel free to collaborate with other content creators, other level designers, or perhaps artists. So, you know, if you're amazing at doing the blockouts and the design of a map, you want to partner up with someone to create custom assets, or, you know, work with other people to help with optimization, feel free to do so. Get yourself in teams. We've got a modding Discord, which was linked in the announcement. It's a community-run modding Discord, but it's a great place to find other people to work with, and also to get advice and feedback. As part of the judging team, we won't be able to give much advice and feedback on the maps as they're being created, other than broad general tips to the entire community. So, you know, we encourage you to get involved with the community, start participating. Once you've got a rough version of your map ready, you know, feel free to upload it to Mod.io early on, get that feedback, get people downloading it, even if it's just a block out at that stage, getting feedback on the flow of the level, the pacing, time to get to objectives. All of that feedback is super valuable. So we encourage people to upload versions early on rather than waiting right to the last minute. I know in previous contests, some people wanted to be secretive about what they're working on and not give away too much or give away ideas. But from our standpoint, we think it's great to get your map out there, get it in the hands of players, get that early feedback and iterate on the design, which is how a lot of our team work. We start with maps and we do internal playtests every single week with our dev team, and gradually we refine them. For this contest, quality is really what's going to get you the marks. If you scroll down a little bit to the judging, Victor, we're going to do 2 phases of judging. The first will be a public voting period. So at the end of the deadline, there'll be a 1-week period on Mod.io for the community to vote on which maps they would like to see in the final. And these will then go on to be judged by our internal team of level designers and some of our industry partners to decide who wins, the top 5 places with the big prizes. So really focus on quality. You can submit multiple entries if you want, but we would encourage everyone just to focus on one really good game mode, one map. And although we do support multiple game modes, and our official maps support all of the game modes, we'd really encourage you to focus on one, really refine it, and make it clear that you want to be judged on this entry and this game mode. Is there anything that I've missed? I feel like I've covered a lot.
No, I think you covered everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say, keep it realistic. Make sure you can actually finish a map, and use your imagination. So, a lot of creative freedom we're adding to this mapping contest, because we're like, okay, our maps are usually based around Middle East, but what would it be like if the map is in Tokyo or a completely different city, right? So, yeah. Just some
Absolutely.
ideas I'm throwing out here.
I mean, Insurgency is set in a fictional war between the security forces and the insurgent forces. We take a lot of inspiration from, ongoing conflicts around the Middle East, North Africa, Southeast Asia, lots of areas around the world. But, rebel groups and insurgents rising up against some kind of security force happens all over the world. So feel free to go a little bit, outside of where our normal settings are. We'd love to see that. I know working on the community side of things, that it's been a big request from the community for, more kind of urban maps or more cities. So we don't want to influence what you guys work on too much. We want to have it as an open book, a blank page, as long as it's a kind of a modern, realistic setting. Your map will be considered for the voting and probably get some great votes. And we're excited to see what people come up with.
Oh yeah.
We normally play a lot of community maps, both as developers, but also on our live streams. During the contest, we won't be showing off any maps from the contest, because we don't want to bias the public voting or anything like that. But once the contest is over, we're going to do a lot of promotion on the maps that were submitted, talking with some of the entrants about how they found the process, the tips that they learnt. We've got a really great community, so feel free to join in and share advice, share ideas, and see how things go. I noticed someone in the chat is saying, is there a forum thread? There is not. However, you can use the mapping section on the Steam forums. Actually, I think it's mod tools section on the Steam forums, or in the community Discord. Our developers will be around. Jeroen and all of our internal developers will be in the Discord. We'll be hanging out. We'll be checking that section of the forums. There's also a newsletter linked in the announcement post. So feel free to subscribe to that. If there's any changes to the contest, any updates to the rules, prizes, anything like that, we'll let you know. As well as our team put out more and more guides and tutorials. So one of the things that we're working on currently is making sure we've got a huge amount of documentation, example content, maps, video clips to help people learn the tools and create really polished content for us. So over the coming months, Jeroen and the rest of the team will be putting out a lot more content and guides. They'll all be uploaded to Mod.io. So you can go to our game hub there. You can see the existing community maps. You can see the guides, and as well as checking out the Steam forums and the Discord.
Yeah, make sure to if you miss something like in the guides or like, oh, it would be good to know this, just shoot a message in our Discord, and yeah, we might be able to edit in one of our guides or like make a separate one if it's like a big enough topic.
Yep, I noticed someone asking if they can use their own custom assets in the game. I believe, Jeroen, you might want to clarify, but I believe that is okay. The only thing that you need to be very careful of is ensuring that everything is your own work and that you have the rights to utilize that work. So, don't go taking assets off the marketplace or, downloading models and textures online unless you have, the full legal permission to use them. And also, we would love to put some of these maps in game officially. So, make sure that, you have a commercial license to use those instead of just an enthusiast license. So that's one thing to be careful of. Obviously, we want original content. So remakes of existing maps, as awesome as they are, we want these to be, brand new creations made for this contest, rather than remakes of maps either from the original Insurgency, from any of our previous titles, or from other games. If you remake a map from Call of Duty or Battlefield, sadly it won't qualify for a contest. So make sure you're coming up with original ideas and designing it for our game mode, for our community, based on our game and for this contest, so that you avoid any quabbles there and disqualification.
You would be allowed to grab assets from the mod editor and kitbash or customize them though, right?
Yeah, you can use any of our assets. We've got a modding end user license agreement on the page, and it details how you can use any of New World Interactive's assets. We are, we're very open. When it comes to people using our assets in game, as long as they're used within our own games, and so we're if you want to take some of our assets or some things in our editor, kitbash them, that's fine. And this is a comment about playtesting. There won't be any New World organized playtesting. In the past, we had some participants saying that it gave unfair promotion or help to some participants, but not everyone, because not everyone was able to take part in our live streams or our playtests. So it will be up to the content creators and the entrants themselves to organize their own playtesting. New World can't help or assist any entry if it's disproportionate. If we offer one thing to one person, we have to offer it to every single entrant, just to be fair. So we're not going to be organizing any playtests, but again, go into the modding section of Steam forums, go into the community modding Discord, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who will be willing to hop into servers to help fill it out and playtest with you. Ewan, do you see any comments in the chat? Just skimming through.
We have a couple of questions too that came up earlier that I think would be worth. But one of the latest questions I saw was asking if mega scans are okay. Now, I'm not providing legal advice because this is actually getting into the rules that's been set. But as far as I'm aware, you should be allowed to use mega scans. Or does that go into the pre-existing asset condition, no matter what the actual license to use them is?
Ewan, do you have an answer on that one?
We have to double check on that one. I think it is fine though, but just want to make sure we have the correct license for it. But yeah, it's part of Unreal Engine now, so
Yeah, essentially, if you have accepted the Unreal Engine end user license agreement, which anyone who has downloaded the engine has done, and as well as you guys, since you're using the tools, then I would think that that would apply to both, and that it would be okay. But why don't y'all can provide an update, perhaps in the forum announcement post after the stream, to make sure that we provide that clarification.
Yep,
Yeah.
we'll check with Megascans just to make sure everything is fine. We're full paying licensee of Unreal Engine, so I believe it should be okay.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify for sure. So any other questions?
I also want to add to that just to add to like you can use whatever what's already inside the editor. You can also like, for example, right now I have PowerPlant open. You can like copy a building from there. Don't like copy and just paste it. But if you make enough changes, that's totally fine. To use it as a base to make your own buildings, your own map.
Yeah, kit bashing is a great way to see results a little bit quicker than doing everything from scratch. So there was a question earlier: how big of an insurgency map can we make? Can we make a large scale war?
Try to keep it like in the proportions of like the current insurgency map, so don't go too big. Not like a battlefield kind of map. I also think there's not enough time for that, but our game is pretty demanding on performance, so larger maps just cost too much performance and we won't be able to put them in game. So just look at the maps we have currently in game, and I would say like Power Plant is a good size. Hillside. If you go more towards Precinct and Summit, those are really large, and it took us more than a year to get those ready for release. So I would say stay away from that because you don't even have the time to finish it. And that was
Absolutely.
full time with multiple developers working on the same map. So yeah.
Yeah, we would suggest people focus on something which is of a manageable scale. Because again, a huge map may be, visually amazing, but quality is really where it's at. We want the worlds and the environments to feel, realistic and lived in. So, make sure that there's do a very good detail pass on, all the props, all the foliage, or the textures, rather than having very barren, empty buildings and worlds. And if you make it too large, it'll be a lot harder to optimize. Some of the things that I'm seeing in the chat is someone saying, do you need to own a copy of the game to download the mod tools? I don't believe you need to own a copy of the game to download the mod tools, but you do need to own a copy of the game to enter the contest. And you will want to test the game. You will want to test your map in game with real players. Just testing in the editor alone probably won't be sufficient. So you do need a copy of the game to enter the contest. I believe there were some being given away in the chat. I don't know if they've all been given away yet. But if not, conveniently, the game is also on sale today, 50% off. So if you do if you do need a copy of the game because you really want to enter this contest, now is a great time to do so. I think it's all this weekend as part of the Focus Home Publisher sale. So I think it's $15 US currently at half price. So I would say a good investment if you can turn $15 into $5,000 worth of pricing if you're skilled enough.
We have a couple more questions if you wanna tackle them. Can we change game rules on our maps, like less or more waves, spawning the truck less often or more often?
No, that we exclude from this contest. We really want to try to get maps that we can actually put officially in the game and are consistent with the current rule sets.
Yeah, so it will mention this in the rules section down the bottom. There's There's 5 game modes or core game modes that we support officially. So your map must be for either checkpoint, push, firefight, frontline, or domination. And it must use the standard rule sets to be eligible to be considered. You can do the different variations of each of the game modes. So checkpoint has a couple of scenarios. We have day versions of maps and night versions of maps. We have hardcore versions of the maps. We have lots of different versions. As long as it's for one of these core 5 game modes, and also state clearly in your submission which game mode you designed the map for, so we know how to test it. And if you want to have your map support multiple game modes, that's totally fine. But again, don't spread yourself too thin. Don't try and design one level with multiple different layouts unless you feel confident that you have time to deliver those both at very high quality. If you do support multiple layouts, make sure that you say in the submission entry which one you want to be judged on. If you have a push layout and a domination layout, that's fine. But say which one you want to be judged on, else we would judge you on all of them, and you don't want one layout that you kind of rushed a little bit to affect your overall score. So all of these things should be clarified in the rules. It's quite long and legalese, but if you scroll down to official rules, it will state full eligibility and entry requirements. I think the only thing to be aware of is that you must be over the age of 18 or have legal permission from a parent or guardian if you're under 18. Standard sort of contest entries. If you live outside of US mainland, there may be shipping and import duties and taxes on any of the prizes that are dispatched. And if you win one of the larger prizes, you may have to fill out a tax form before we're able to release the funds. So all of this is documented. So make sure you have a solid read through. But on our standpoint, we want people to have fun. We want people to create awesome maps. Even if you don't submit a map in time for a contest, don't just give up on it. Keep going, keep working on it. I'm sure the community will enjoy it, even if it gets released in a year or 2 years' time. Our games generally have quite large player bases, especially through community servers and custom game modes and custom maps. So I'm sure the community will be really excited. I guess one thing to cover is that 50% of the marks come from gameplay. So make sure gameplay is first and foremost in your mind when you're thinking about the maps. And that is gameplay with the standard rule sets on whichever mode you are developing for. Personally, I would suggest that the co-op modes are probably easier to develop than the larger scale PvP modes. You may beg to differ. But if you're just testing with 8 people against AI, it's probably slightly easier than trying to balance a map designed for 32 players, because you're going to want to get 32 of your friends to jump in and help judge, balance with the teams and things there. And then it's 25% coming from visual aesthetics. So, how visually good does the map look? How well does it stick to Sandstorm's theme and thematics? And then it's 25% on performance and optimization. The Unreal Engine is slightly hungry when it comes to performance, so don't leave performance right to the very end. Make sure you give yourself plenty of time to go through and dedicate time to that. So that's where the final judging will be based on, and the shortlist of the top 10 will be based on community voting, community judging. That's determined by the Mod.io rating of the number of thumbs up versus thumbs down. And then the top 10 will be considered. If there's a tie, I believe it's decided based on the number of people who are subscribed to that map on Mod.io. So we'll make sure we put up plenty of communication when the judging opens, and make sure that all of our community get involved.
There are some more technical questions in return, in terms of the mod editor. You guys cool answering some of those?
Sure, go ahead.
Do all of the levels use baked lighting?
Yeah, they do. All levels have baked lighting. We have some stationary lights, usually in like the kit selection rooms, where you select the weapons. Just because those are the rooms are very far away from like the actual playable level. It just adds like a bit more, bit higher quality, looks cooler, and also there's no gameplay going on there. You want to make sure you have good lighting on the weapons. And you can actually check those kit selection rooms out in the power plant level. And also we add like some more documentation about it, probably in our quick start, like how we set up our kit selection rooms.
Let's see. Should I start with the Unreal Landscape mode for terrain, or how is it done in Insurgency?
It's just a landscape tool, yeah, just a normal workflow.
Let's see. Do you have strategies to make larger caves in the map, given the technical side of it?
Like the tunnels? I mean, like the cave, like.
I guess just in general,
just,
probably tunnels, caves.
To just do like kit bashing, right? We have like different sizes of rocks, make them different scales. We use that for one of our maps, Canyon Crossing. So yeah, there are different ways to make caves.
Let's see. Are there any particular design ideas and principles that you incorporate to design a map that works for several game modes?
Yes, we do. That's an interesting question, actually. We learned a lot, over the years by making these levels and making sure all the game modes are compatible in a map. It's really, really important to start thinking like really early on, like which game modes do I actually want to add in my map? Like Push and Firefight are very different from each other when it comes in layouts. I can just quickly show it, like push you you push all the way up like through the map to the end. But Firefight is a lot smaller and a lot more confined. So if I go into sub levels, but again. And we have two in this one. We have Firefight West and Firefight East. Gonna look here for Firefight. And we have an A objective here. B and C. So you see it only uses this part of the map, but it's designed in a way that it can work with Firefight. If you say like, okay, I make a map only for Push and you make it very narrow, then it might be really difficult to actually add like a Firefight layout, which is fine in some regard, because if it's a really fun Push layout, why would you add like Firefight? Maybe it's just not fitting, and maybe Checkpoint is more a mode that really suits well with Push, because Push and Checkpoint are pretty similar modes. It's kind of the same with Frontline, which is pretty similar to Push. Really, Firefight and Domination are the exception, although with Domination it's more like a team deathmatch mode. It's really like more of a fun mode, I would say. So it doesn't have to follow all the restrict rules as much as Firefight, because Firefight is also more our competitive mode, so it needs to be better balanced. So yeah, just make sure you prepare well from the start.
I would suggest as well, depending on people's familiarity with the game, before you dive straight into designing a map and a layout, whether that's on paper or just blocking something out in the engine, make sure you familiarize yourself with the different game modes, how they play, as well as things like that are unique to Insurgency. So the different classes within the game. There was a question earlier saying, how do we balance for, different play styles, different classes? You want to ensure that your map is fun, whether you're playing as a sniper or whether you're playing as someone with a submachine gun. You want to have that balance of long range encounters and big open streets that you can kind of hold down a position on, as well as some close quarters combat. Think about the way that essentially Sandstorm plays very differently to a lot of other first-person shooters as well. You've got a very high time to kill. Generally, people would die in 1 or 2 shots. So make sure that there's sufficient cover and you're not having very exposed hallways unless you're designing a map to have that as part of its gameplay. Think about things like the bullet physics and penetration systems within the game. So when you're determining the thicknesses of materials and types of materials you use, wood won't stop a bullet as well as concrete or steel. So think about that with your design. And also think about some of the more unique mechanics in the game. So if a game mode supports fire support, you might want to make sure that there is roofs on the buildings so that if a helicopter gets called in, there's somewhere to take cover without being fully exposed all the time. So I would, if you're unfamiliar with Sandstorm, I would suggest spending a week or 2 just playing the game, familiarizing yourself with it before you dive headfirst into creating content, and then finding that the layout that you had in mind won't necessarily work with the gameplay and the mechanics of the game.
That was something I wanted to touch on earlier when you were talking about sort of using the mod editor to learn Unreal. If I would have been able to dive into sort of the Insurgency Sandstorm mod editor before I built my first-person shooter, the way I would have designed, sort of all of those components, like where players start, volumes where they can enter, and different states of like, oh, now this object is complete, so therefore they are now allowed to progress further. That kind of knowledge, it's really useful to be able to break it down and look at how, a shipped game took care of all of those problems, and then put that, into the back of your mind when you try to design that yourself. It's just a wealth of information, since you're actually able to open up and see, what your classes that we're showing off, like this scenario and all the other ones, like how you have structured this for the level designers to be able to build these maps. And that's just a wealth of information that can be difficult to get unless you're able to sort of, actually dive into the tools and the project. That makes me a little bit curious. How deep does the mod editor expose actors and classes? Can you open up sort of blueprints that are actually being used in the game, or is it limited to what's exposed through the C++ classes?
You can open blueprints. Yeah, there's some limitation though. You cannot do any scripting. It's mostly around like level editing, like the level editor. But you can make your own blueprints for the levels. That's all possible. We also have live blueprints that we're using actually in this map. A lot of them. Like we have these like lights here, and if I out of the way. It's all blueprints, so you can make your own blueprints, and maybe even like if you copy these, modify like a blueprint, and put them in your own level. So yeah, there are a lot of possibilities here, but it's all around like the level editing, not so much like making actual like core gameplay changes.
Yeah, and especially for this contest, the levels are what we're focusing on. But I mean, I've been surprised by some of the things the community can do in the editor. There's a lot of things that we don't quite officially support yet. We do plan to improve our mod tools over time to other areas just iterate on the tools that we have available. But the community have done some really amazing things on custom servers, and not just in terms of levels. I've seen people putting in, new weapons and things like that, but they're all server-side mods rather than for the core gameplay. And for this contest, we want to focus on additional levels that fit with our core game modes, our core mechanics of the game. I noticed somebody asked if there's a list on bullet penetration. There was a talk that we did, that Jeremy Fauconpré did at Unreal Fest Europe, I want to say a year or two back, which goes into a lot of details about our production process and our bullet physics and mechanics in the game. I will try to find a link to that video and I'll drop it in the chat. That's a great resource for how our team use Unreal and some of the cool things that we've been able to do in Unreal that were a lot harder or not necessarily as supported in some of our older games. There's lots of really awesome mechanics that we've brought into the Insurgency franchise with Sandstorm, and that talk goes into quite a lot of detail about the different penetration levels and bullet physics which might play into your designs.
Yeah. I have to add though to that, the bullet penetration is pretty much like in real life, like thicker walls, bullets will be less, won't go through that easy. Wood, very easy. Very thin walls like plaster, you would shoot right through them. Metal is a lot harder, usually just blocks bullets. So yeah, that's why we have like the thicker sandbags just to make sure it stops the bullets.
Absolutely. Is there any other questions that you see in here?
Do you make new maps because of when a new mode comes out, or is it a process of keeping the players engaged with new content? A little bit more general.
Yeah, pretty much more engaged with new content. That's really important for us, like adding more variation. Like every time we make a map, we try to add something different, like make sure it's not the same as the map before. It's like, some maps are more CQB, like this one, for example, is more like CQB gameplay. But the one before this one, which was Hillside, I think, was a lot more open. And just like a different arrangement of buildings, like objective designs. It's usually things that we learn through the process and feel like, hey, we should try this out. And if it's fun, oh yeah, we should actually try it in a map and see how it plays and go from there. Yeah.
There was a question that came up earlier. They were wondering if the objective volume can the objective volume consist of. Okay, sorry, I have to rephrase. Can the objective volume consist of a volume but extruded to all the rooms? So I think what they're asking essentially, how would you make each room also be part of the same objective, but maybe not like a corner outside of the building if it's not a perfect rectangle?
Yeah, you have to make like separate capture zones for that. So like I showed in my demonstration, like you have to like each like volume needs to be connected to like the objective capturable. So there's no way to really extrude it because that doesn't work. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just a cube that's being scaled.
Yeah, we're still looking into that, making that easier to use, but I'm not sure when that will be ready.
It's a very typical workflow that's sort of easy to adapt, right? It's just a cube. You place more of them, stretch in different directions. I think we're pretty good on questions, at least the ones that came in earlier. At least the ones that we can answer.
Sounds good. I mean, if people do have any other questions, feel free to post on the modding section of the Steam forums. And feel free to hop into the modding Discord. We will also be doing a developer live stream in 1 minute over on our channel, and our community manager Aaron might be able to answer a few more of your questions if they weren't covered in this more technical focused talk. We're also going to be showing off some of the new content and indeed one of the new levels, which is coming in our next content update. And other than that, I mean, we encourage you to take a good look at the rules. We hope this is a really great motivation for people to start working on a custom level. We love seeing community-made maps, community levels. All of our player base indeed enjoy them too. So we're really excited to see where this goes. The past contests have been, just fantastic for generating contests. I believe we had about 60 entries in the last contest, and all of these custom maps add a huge amount of diversity, replayability, and just I guess innovation and creativity into the game. So we're super excited that we can launch this. And if you have any other questions, head to a modding Discord or the mod section of the Steam forums, and we'll be able to check there.
Sounds
Super
good,
excited.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool. With that, thanks so much for coming on, showing off the level editor. So I was talking a little bit about the contest. Excited to see what comes out of it. Hopefully, I get to play some of the maps as well. With that said, have a little bit of an outro spiel I normally do. Just in general, thanks for watching. Always pleasant to have you here. If you've been watching from the beginning, cool. That's awesome. Good for you. Hopefully, you didn't have anything that was more productive to do today. If you have watched any of our streams previously, whether this one or any of the ones really, you might have noticed that we do have a 5-minute countdown that happens at the beginning. We are still looking for more countdown videos, and what they are is 30 minutes of development that's sped up to 5 minutes. Send that to us in as high quality as possible, together with a separate file of your logo, whether that's your personal one, your company's, or whatever it is, and then we will composite them together, and you might be one of our countdown videos. As always, we're always looking for community spotlights to put down in our news and community spotlight segment. We look all over the place: Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Discord, but another good place to post about it is in the released and work in progress section on our forums. That's a good spot to also be able to get a little bit of feedback in sort of a more persistent way. Make sure you follow us on social media. That's where we update for all of the streams and news related to Unreal Engine. I was going to see. Yes, next week we are actually doing a breakdown for the Unreal for All Creators video that we put out a little while ago. We're going to have some of the 3D artists, technical artists, as well as artists on the stream to talk about how they produced that and how they composited sort of real life footage together with Unreal, and then outputted that to make a really cool looking, what's the name of the movie with complete brain fart. That's I was trying to think where he twists the world and it goes upside down. It looks very similar to I don't know if you guys have seen the Unreal for All Creators video yet, but it definitely pulls some inspiration from popular movies. Next time, I'll probably remember it as soon as I shut down the stream. We are going to raid the New World stream right after, so stick around if you want to continue watching that, or just head over to twitch.tv/New World. That's correct, right? It's twitch.tv/New World. Yeah, I got it. Nice. My notes are correct. Last but not least, we do transcribe all of our live streams. So roughly about a week after the live stream goes up on YouTube, there is a link to a document with the entire stream transcribed. What's good about that is that if you are watching one of our more technical ones where we're doing deep dives into specific tools and or features, and you don't remember exactly where in the talk we mentioned the detail that you might want to dive into a little bit further and see exactly how we did it, you can open up download that document, and use just Control F and search for the term you're looking for, and that will actually bring up all the timestamps for when that word was said. It's a really nice and useful way to be able to go back into the streams and find, because some of them are long and there's a lot of information, a lot of things being said, and that's a good way to go back and find it. And so if, for example, if you're curious about, say, scenario that was on this stream, you can go ahead and search for that inside the text document. Make sure you fill out our survey. I think Amanda posted it earlier. If not, I'm gonna go ahead and do that again. And with that said, I think it's time to end the stream. Almost 5 minutes into New World. Are you guys live on the other end? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start the raid. And with that said, thanks again to John and Jerome and the team from Insurgency for letting you all come here. I should say New World Interactive, shouldn't I? Which is technically New World, and then your team is Insurgency. I don't know. Maybe you're working on more games. I don't know. Tune in for to twitch.tv/New World if you want to check them out. All right. I hope you all had a good time today. Make sure you stay safe out there, and we will see you all next week. Take care, everyone.